There's also near-death experiences where people, like, there's been studies where people have been in car accidents together and like saw each other in their near-death experience.
Right. Yeah, so there you go. Now, if somebody says this, you're going to say, well, you hit your head. 100 people says this, then you go, okay, I need to look at this.
So this is something that you're touching on that I think is very important. John Chavez from DMT Quest, who got involved with the film, and not like he invested in it, but also he asked us if we would be okay with venturing into some territories like near-death experience or things like this, potentially, if we can be presented with a certain amount of data. So what John is really good at is very aware of all the different kinds of research that exists out there. Mm-hmm. And he made me aware of this. I didn't know this, that apparently what you would call these fringe investigative, sections of science, near-death experience, some people manifesting objects, like things that you would think like, oh, this is some, like Twilight Zone crazy shit. Apparently there's like real data about these things. Yeah. And for the most part, it's kind of being ignored. I have a friend that I know really well, and he had a open heart surgery, and he was very, well, kind of like us, like he's very open-minded, straightforward, not, like necessarily married to believe anything in particular, but pretty, I would say secular in his predispensation. He came back completely changed, and he said, Danny, I was above my body, the whole shebang. I went to visit my mother in Ireland. I saw her. I know it wasn't a vision. I know I saw her like in real time. He's like, I will never be the same. It's like, because there's a level of realness to it, I guess. I've never had that. I've never had an out-of-body experience, but I understand that sentiment of like the realness of it that is so salient to the person.
I saw a video on YouTube a couple months ago where this guy was explaining how when he was young, he had a near-death experience. Like, he was in a car accident, right? And he said he saw some sort of entity, or he communicated with some sort of, I'm a little bit vague on what exactly he said he saw the first time when he was young. But then later, he said he went to a mountain with one of his buddies and they did mushrooms. And he said he saw the same entity. And he said maybe it was DMT. It was either DMT or mushrooms. And he said that the entity said, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out and don't ever come back.
I think I've heard this.
He said it was the same thing.
This guy?
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, this is the guy. It's a 12-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but it is. It's that's because the reason I bring that up is because I had this guy on here who did this. He basically won this. It was a part of the grant that this dude John Bigelow.
Related to Bam Bam Bigelow.
I
from
smoked
WWF?
DMT while a friend observed. Okay, so it was DMT. While a friend observed along a lake, I went from total fear, out my head, blast off, to total calm and empty, quiet space.
Same entity.
Okay, so
right. Yeah. Did you have that? Did you have the NDE? Did you have
never had NDE, but I definitely met the same beings.
So I had this guy in here. So there's this guy named John Bigelow who's been like a part of the whole. He's an aerospace billionaire.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's really
That's
into
Robert
this
Bigelow.
stuff. Robert Bigelow. What did I call him?
You said John.
John Bigelow. Oh,
Robert.
Yeah, he's building the space.
John Bigelow,
he
male
started
gigolo.
the space hotel. I remember this back
Yes.
in the X Prize times. Like, he was building this space hotel. He was
He's very into the whole alien disclosure movement and all this stuff, and he's got a lot of money. And he basically he put up basically a bounty, like a bunch of money for people who could come up with a theory on near-death experiences and what they were or whatever. And this guy won the prize for it because he was, what was the gentleman's name who he had in here again?
Jeffrey Mishlove.
No, not Jeffrey Mishlove. It was the guy before that. The guy who was talking about the near-death experiences of people together.
Oh, that was Jeffrey Long?
Yeah, Jeffrey Long. Yeah. So he won a bunch of money for his study on these near-death experiences, and he put I think he's had thousands of people together, and he's been studying this for his whole life. And I asked him about this guy who had the DMT experience and told him, don't come back. And he thinks that there's absolutely zero connection
between
both spaces.
Right.
Oh, it's spiritual and DMT space?
But between the near-death experience realm and the DMT realm?
I'm open to it. I'm on record saying this. Wait, this is a conversation me and Zoltan had back and
I
forth.
had both of those.
You had, right.
I had actual NDE when I hit the truck, right? Which I never saw in my body. Never looked at myself, but I could move in space, and look behind the house, and like I was not bound by. I wanted to look behind a bush, and I just did, and that was not possible. Like that bush was far away, or look behind the house. So it was. I never looked at my body because I was a kid. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But on a MEO5, you can have, like people call it ego death. And I sort of have a theory what actually happens there is that, and it's funny that it comes from the frog. And I'm going to say, like, if you have a reptilian mind, right? I just call that reptilian mind that the basic function, your DOS, operating system, how many times you blink and all that stuff, right? And the feedback system from your body, right? So there's your mind that is not the brain, the mind that is not material, right? So your thoughts and all those processes. And there's a connection between that because those processes tell you like, oh, I gotta run. But how do you know? Like, well, your subconscious, or call it reptilian mind, or call it that the basic operation system told you that you're in danger, so you gotta run, right? So these two works together, and my theory is that the MEO5 is basically the frog venom severes this connection, so your mind gets zero feedback from the body, or any kind, zero. There's no feedback from the body. And so it will perceive as you died. Because all the sensory data that would otherwise coming in just simply not there. And so that's why possibly you experience this state of like, oh, I just died. Like I had that experience. Like I went through that, like, holy shit, it just died.
Where you're not connected to anything back
Well, you're conscious.
Yeah.
Right? But I had this absolute certainty that I just died. Like it's an absolute certainty, like, wow. And that's the recall. Same thing. If you research it, people talk about the ego death, or people try to figure out what happens. Some people have it on NDEs, some people have it on MEO5, 5MEO. And the experience that they talk about is that, like they're trying to, like I died, and they have this absolute certainty that they did, and I had the absolute certainty, like holy cow, it just game over. This just ended today.
Well, so you're a perfect person to ask. I do want to ask you about this difference that the guy was describing, because my impression also that the DMT, NN at least, feels very different than what I'm experiencing when I'm deep states of meditation. I've never had near death, but from the descriptions, and again, this is why you're a perfect person to ask, you don't feel that there's a difference in the essence of it? Like the digital nature of like how the DMT space feels, doesn't it feel different to you than what you experienced when you were 12 years old when you hit the truck? Maybe not. I'm asking.
Okay, so and then DMT to me that there's a in that space there's a very conscious process that I can direct. Like I'm going in and I know that I'm going here, I'm going there. Like there's a complex processes going on. Like I kind of always talk about like, look, any psychedelics that exist is you observing something in a theater, right? And you just take a different seat. It's a different angle. So every single opiates to THC to everything that has somehow altered your perception, but you look into the same theater act. Whatever is going on, you just look at it from a different point with different focus. What's important to you now changed, so you see something else. It's what it means is when we talk about like you have this filter system. Yeah. Right. So every single one of those substances change the filters. What is important, what isn't important. So you look at it a different way. DMT is the backstage pass. Like
such a good analogy.
What's going on in the theater no longer matters. Now you see how these things are moved, and oh yeah, this guy fly in. There's a rope that he was, So you see how the thing works, right? And then 5MEO is. You're not in the theater. You look at the whole thing, the whole existence, the whole thing from the outside, like if NN was the backstage pass and see how things move, and they're very mechanical in some way, digital, you could even say, that things are built and there are different level of managements. There is a tour manager, there's a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody has a function. There are various entities with different functions and levels of consciousness and power. And then all of a sudden, 5MEO is the elevator to the boss. Like, we're going to the boss. We're going all the way. This is the guy. This is the one consciousness.
Upper management.
No, this is the boss. This is the ownership right here. This is
God.
the boss.